We are touted to be the third biggest aviation market, and there's no doubt about that. We've carried almost 45 million customers since inception. There has been a strong rebound in travel. We will focus on international. That's why you see a lot of new routes that are being added, such as Dammam. We reintroduced Colombo.
Hello everyone. We have with us Mr. Vinod Kannan, who is the Chief Executive Officer for Vistara Airlines. Especially after the announcement of merger of Vistara and Air India, a lot of you have been having a lot of questions and curiosity for one of the favorite airlines in the country. So we are here today with Mr. Kannan to know more about Vistara's plans and see what is unfolding for us in the future. Hello Mr. Kannan.
Hi, thanks Lakpreet for having me.
Thank you so much for doing this with us. I think we'll start off with one of the most popular questions, and that is, how is Vistara going to retain the beautiful brand value that it has created over the years and in the hearts of people? Recently, in an interview, Mr. Campbell Wilson was talking about how they would like to retain the legacy of Vistara. So I'm very curious to know, how are you going to do that, and how is Vistara going to remain as a brand after the merger?
Sure. Thank you, and firstly thanks to you and all your readers for all the love and appreciation that you've given Vistara. I think it's been a memorable 8 years. We just celebrated 8 years, and what we've built and accomplished over these 8 years speaks for itself. I think a lot of it was because of the attention that we had around customer centricity and customer focus. Of course, the great team that we have, 5,000 people who work day and night to make sure that we are the best airline in India, and therefore a lot of credit goes to the team. As to your point on what happens post the integration or the merger, as you rightly said, and I think as has been conveyed, the intention is to look at a full service and a low cost structure in the integrated entity. And I think one of the things that is very clear from both Campbell, as you mentioned, as well as the shareholders, is all the positives that we built here. How do we migrate that onto the new Air India per se as well? Whether it comes to policies, processes, the way we do things, knowledge transfer, and people. I mean, in the end, any organization is built by its people, and therefore, as I've been assuring my team, I think there's enough and more opportunities for us in the new organization, and we hope that a lot of them do come along on the journey.
Yeah. So you were talking about people at the heart of this merger, and there has been a lot of talk about what is going to happen with the people. So I'm curious to know, how do you plan to resolve issues like single positions, the pay parity, and you also talked about hiring another 1,000 employees in this year. So I'm very curious to know how you're planning to also include them in the merger process.
See, if you look at the scale of what is being set out to be achieved, we are looking at almost 2x to 2.5x compared to what we have today. Not just Vistara, but across the Tata Group airlines. So again, for all airlines, a lot of this manpower that you mentioned is the frontline and operational staff, and that's directly related to the number of aircraft. So obviously, there's going to be no impact on that as the number of aircraft go. In fact, we will have to recruit more staff as well. As far as the other support staff are concerned, I think given again the scale of what we're planning to achieve, there is enough opportunities for us, and I think that's something that we are very clear that we'd like to have everyone as part of the bigger unit as well, and that's what we're working towards.
Right. And I want to know that what is the status of the merger process with AI? I mean, are you sure that it will get completed by March 2024, which was the designated date for the merger completion?
That's the plan. The process has begun. Of course, there are various approvals that are needed, and there are various things that we can't work together with AI on because we are still separate entities. But once we have those approvals and once that that process takes place, I think we'll have a little bit more clarity. But I think we are working towards those kind of timelines.
Right. And Vistara has reported its first profit in Q3 ever since the inception. So what do you think are the drivers for the growth of this profit that has come up?
Firstly, I think, again, I have to say thanks to all my people who made this possible, the team at Vistara, but also to the customers. I mean, we've carried almost 45 million customers since inception, and the support and the love, like you brought up at the beginning of the program, that they have given Vistara is something that is really monumental. So of course, if you look at the macroeconomic factors, there has been a strong rebound in travel. Again, not just in India, but across the world since 2022 or 2023. And therefore, that has definitely played up in terms of demand, in terms of the average ticket price and so on. Yes, unfortunately, cost of operations was also high. You might remember during the second half of last year, fuel prices were quite high. Thankfully, that's come off a little bit now, but the US dollar is still strong compared to the Indian rupee. So there are some clouds when it comes to the cost side, but thankfully, we've been able to do a very good job on the revenue or the top line side, thanks to the support from customers.
And what are your expectations from Q4 now?
We hope to continue the good run, but of course it will depend because the seasonality also matters,
Yeah.
and Jan to March is not exactly as strong as an October to December quarter. So the revenue, as you can see yourself, if you look at the average ticket prices, although load factors have remained steady or in fact increased slightly, the average ticket price has actually come down because the peaks of December are not repeated in this quarter. So we are hopeful. We are hoping to have a good result for this quarter as well, but time will tell.
Right. So you also talked about how more aircraft come in, and hence more employees will get a chance to be in the company. And you yourself also want to induct 70 aircraft. I mean, you want to reach the target of 70 aircraft
right.
by the end of this year. So I am also curious to know what aircraft are you planning to get into your fleet. And additionally, I also want to know from you, while companies are focusing on inducting aircraft, inducting more fleet, do you think India's airports and India's infrastructure is completely ready for it, or do you think there are some gaps, and how do you think they should be addressed?
So let me talk about the first part, which is what we are planning to do. From the current, I think as of today, we are at 55 aircraft. We will get another 15 net. Some aircraft will leave the fleet. The 737s that we have only 2 of them left, and they will leave the fleet as well. So overall, we'll add in another 17 aircraft. So 17 minus 2 is 15. That's the increase we're looking at. 4 of them will be 787s, which are the Dreamliners. There will be 3 more 321s, which are the longer versions of the 320.
Yeah.
The rest will all be 320 neos. So it's a pretty homogeneous fleet. We're looking at an Airbus 320, 321 and a few 787s, which are the Dreamliners. And of course, they are the state of the art and the most efficient when it comes to sustainability, when it comes to fuel burn and so on. So we are very looking forward to that, and the ramp up will continue as we're talking about in terms of staff. As far as the Indian aviation industry is concerned, I think as we speak, there are more and more airports that are coming up. I'm sure you know about Mopa, the new airport that's coming up in Goa. And I think there are more that are coming up even in Delhi. There's Jawar that's coming up. There's Navi Mumbai and some of the others. Therefore, I think the infrastructure constraints that we have will probably remain for the short term, but there is going to be some growth in airport capacity as well.
I'm really looking forward to that. Apart from that, what do you think are some of the challenges that stand ahead of the growing aviation industry? I think it has been in the limelight, and it has been the talk of the town in the last 1 or 2 years, especially after the pandemic. So do you think the same hype, that same numbers reaching up, passenger footfall is going to remain even after now that the pandemic eases out? Additionally, what do you think are the challenges that stand ahead for us?
No, I think fundamentally, if you look at the Indian aviation market, we are in a better place compared to some of the other countries because we have a growing market. We are touted to be the 3rd biggest aviation market, and there's no doubt about that. And again, if you look at the proportion of Indians who are flying now, there is still a long headway on how many more people can actually take to the skies. So I think at a very high, broad level, we are a growing market, and therefore demand should come in. Having said that, I talked about cost pressures for airlines, especially because we are so much driven by USD costs or foreign currency costs, and that's an issue. The challenges which we never foresaw, such as another pandemic, hopefully touch wood that never happens. But we are an industry that is so prone to so many of these shocks. But thankfully, we are also an industry that bounces back quite fast. So I think overall, I'd say my outlook is quite positive, or as we say, cautiously optimistic.
That's amazing. So as of now, what are the routes that are most profitable for Vistara? Of lately, I've been seeing you adding so many new routes, and most of them are also international. So I'm curious to know, out of the existing routes or the international routes that you started, where do you see the maximum profit coming in, and what are your plans related to international routes now that you're also planning to induct new aircraft?
Well, I can't talk about specific routes and route profitability. I can say that the international routes, like you said, are doing very well. In fact, when you look at a longer flying time, like anything more than 3 to 4 hours, domestic, most flights are around 4 hours maximum. That's where our value comes to the fore, because the product that we have, the service that we provide is best enjoyed on slightly longer flights. Therefore, the international flights are doing well, especially the ones to Europe. I think London, Frankfurt and Paris, which we are operating with our 3 787 Dreamliners, are doing very well, and we expect that to continue. The routes in the region which we've added, whether it's to the Middle East, to Southeast Asia, or even the neighboring SAARC countries, are also doing very well. So from a load factor demand perspective, as well as from an average ticket price or average fare, international is doing well. On the domestic side, of course, our forte is on the point-to-point metro cities, the tier 1 cities as we call it, but some of the other smaller cities have also been very good because they also feed into the international network. So it's been a good complementary kind of effect. And as far as the new aircraft coming in, we will focus on international. That's why you see a lot of new routes that are being added, such as Dammam, we reintroduced Colombo, Mauritius is going to start from Bombay soon. So there'll be more such announcements.
That's amazing. So along with the merger and sustainability, another talk of the town in the last 1 year has been the cargo market.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very curious to know, how do you look at the cargo market, since it's been expanding and it was the best performing during the pandemic? And do you also have any plans to further expand into the cargo section, or will you continue with the belly cargo that you go with conventionally?
Yeah. So fundamentally, I think we are a passenger airline, and therefore belly cargo is what we will be focusing on. Having said that, with the 787s, you have a belly capacity of 20 to 25 tons, which is quite significant. So I think we have good growth coming in just from the belly hold in the coming year. And also the fact is that cargo market is also quite seasonal. In fact, now that capacity is back in the market, cargo yields and demand has kind of flattened out a little bit compared to the highs of what it was during the pandemic. So therefore, I think we will focus on passenger, and where we can, we will be looking at adding, using the belly hold capacity as well.
Right. A lot of need also has been felt of MRO in the country. There has been, like I said, infrastructure is one angle where a lot of focus has come now, and we do want more of it in the country. So in specific, are you planning to establish MRO in the country, or what plans do you have related to MRO and infrastructure in general?
Not at this time. I think our focus at this time is looking at bringing in the 70 aircraft that we have. In fact, we have an engineering and maintenance team here where a lot of activities are now being done by our team as well. So we are focusing on improving our internal capabilities, which will be required in the long run. But setting up a separate MRO, I think that's not something in Vistara's plan for now.
Yeah. I think that answers most of the questions that I had and a lot of people had. Thank you so much for speaking to us, Mr. Kannan. This was a pleasure talking to you, and we wish all the best for the airline in the future.
Thank you so much, Lovepreet. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.